that was the view really for decades, that civilization began about 6,000 years ago. And before that, there was no such thing as civilization. But then suddenly, out of the blue, and we've got an episode on this in the series, comes Gobekli Tepe in Turkey.
Klaus Schmidt called it a center of innovation.
Because what we know for a fact is that the carbon dating in all the area around Gobekli Tepe is somewhere around 12,000 years.
It's 5,000 years old, and the supposed oldest megalithic structure is highly sophisticated, 20-ton pillars, beautiful astronomical alignments. Buried, deliberately buried by the people who created it. It's a fucking enormous megalithic structure.
So here we are, at the site of arguably one of the most important discoveries in recent history. Because not only did it reveal something interesting from the past, it also turned conventional history on its head. Gobekli Tepe made all the hard-headed historians bow their heads in disbelief, and it gave wind to the sails of alternative historians, like Graham Hancock. You see, for decades now, some of those so-called fringe historians claimed that there were advanced civilizations before us, that for some reason got obliterated into oblivion and then forgotten. Some people tend to immediately revert to ancient alien theories, but...
Well, let's just pause here for a second.
Yeah, let's not go there right now. Let's stick to the facts. And again, I have to give credit where credit is due. Joe Rogan does his best to find the truth, so he decided to bring a skeptic to the show and have someone confront Hancock's theories. Let's see how that went down. The thing is, when the ruins of Gobekli Tepe were discovered, mainstream history just said something like,
Well, it just was, well, I guess we were wrong about hunter-gatherers. Maybe they can do more stuff than we gave them credit for.
But actually, there is a big problem with that theory. So let's examine how humans started building huge monuments in the first place. The mainstream theory says it was mainly because of agriculture. With agriculture, we weren't just hunter-gatherers anymore, struggling to make ends meet. For the first time in history, our ancestors had experienced abundance.
So they were generating surpluses, which allowed specialists to have the time to learn how to be architects and engineers and builders.
But the problem is that mainstream archaeology thinks that it was hunter-gatherers who built Gobekli Tepe, not farmers.
Gatherers. And how, in God's name, do a group of hunter-gatherers wake up one morning and create something like this?
This is again where ancient alien theorists step in. Even Hancock seems to believe there was some kind of a transfer of knowledge from a higher civilization to our ancestors. He believes that Gobekli Tepe wasn't the start of a civilization, but the reboot of an even earlier one. And that, my friends, is a whole other ballgame. And if you really, really want me to go down that rabbit hole, leave a comment below, and I might just wake up one day and do it. For now, let's return to Gobekli Tepe, which is
probably the biggest megalithic structure on Earth because so much of it is still underground.
We know that it's so huge because of the use of ground-penetrating radar. Hancock had the chance to talk to and work beside Klaus Schmidt, the archaeologist who led the excavations at Gobekli Tepe.
Talked to me a lot, and he said basically 50 times as much as they've already excavated is still under the ground, that there's hundreds and hundreds of giant stone pillars that they've identified with ground-penetrating radar.
So basically, not only is this the oldest megalithic structure on Earth, but it is apparently by far the largest one ever found. The thing is, it is unlikely that it will ever be excavated fully, and even if it was, we might not understand what it all means. The skeptics seem to side with the conventional thought.
So now what archaeologists are saying was, I guess we were wrong about hunter-gatherers.
Being stubborn as always, mainstream archaeology still believes that the hunter-gatherers just woke up one day, not only with the idea to build massive structures, but also with the knowledge and the technology that allowed them to do so in such a marvelous fashion. To them, that theory is more likely than the theory that another civilization could have developed and perished in the span of 10,000 years or more. That's just insane, isn't it? I mean, look where we are now. We are on the brink of World War III and the annihilation of mankind. And just 10,000 years or so, we were supposedly still just living in the forest. To me, it sounds perfectly reasonable that there were previous civilizations that got obliterated. It would make the stories of the Great Floods make perfect sense. And more archaeological sites are being uncovered under the sea. Imagine if we could excavate all of them, what stories they would tell. But that isn't likely to happen either, as so far, underwater exploration is an expensive and time-consuming endeavor. So for the time being, I am siding with the Hancock team. I agree when he says that.
Lost civilizations are not such an extraordinary idea. I mean, nobody knew that the Indus Valley civilization existed at all until some railway work was done around Mohenjo-Daro in 1923.
And just like that, an entire civilization popped out of nowhere and right into our history books. And we still haven't even deciphered their script, so who knows? Maybe the same will happen with Gobekli Tepe. Only time will tell, I guess. As is expected, Rogan hops in with a very direct question.
So what do you think is going on when you look at something like Gobekli Tepe that's covered up purposefully, right?
And there we go again. Without even trying, the mystery gets deeper. So not only do we not know who built the site, why they built it, and how they got the technology to do so, but now we find out they also buried it on purpose. Or was it a later civilization that buried it? It was covered with soil so much that it turned into a hill. In fact, Gobekli Tepe is a Turkish term that means pot-bellied hill. There is so much to talk about when it comes to Gobekli Tepe. But now, I want to point you to the imagery on display at the temple, which we'll be discussing in our next video.
There's quite a lot of imagery on those T-shaped pillars, particularly one pillar, Pillar 43 in Enclosure D.
According to experts from Edinburgh, the imagery on Pillar 43 seems to depict a comet hitting the Earth. Lo and behold, other experts claim that there was supposedly a mass extinction event of both flora and fauna around 13,000 years ago.
The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis.
And that fits in nicely with the lost civilization narrative. Join me next time as I plunge into that rabbit hole and discover if a comet could have been the spark that erased thousands of years of our ancient history and ignited what Hancock refers to as a reboot of civilization. Thanks for being here as we peeked into the mystery of Gobekli Tepe. We will return to this topic again because there's so much more to explore. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey as we take another bite out of history just to see what it's made of.